Oh, we are live. I was going to give you a countdown, and it went really fast.
Well, I mean, technically you did. 0.
Hello and welcome to Insurrection with Brenton Lengel, special analyze the debate with Destiny that I just had. And I am joined here with Bobby B of the Mustache Mafia podcast. How are you doing, Bobby?
I'm pretty good. I've been busy for a while, so y'all probably haven't seen me doing that much content. I tried to do a live stream, and I totally messed up OBS on my computer. I have to reinstall and do all kinds of stuff, but I should be getting some more content out.
Oh, yeah. OBS is weird, and it's so easy to screw it up. I recorded my original stream with Destiny after I inadvertently summoned him by complaining about him on Ben Burgess's channel, and unfortunately, the stream just didn't load. It had me and it had Destiny and had Destiny's voice, but it didn't have my voice somehow.
Oh my god, it's so weird.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with the fact that I was using Discord. So, I'm apparently.
Oh god, that might have done it.
Yeah, and Destiny was the one that wanted to talk over Discord. I don't use Discord very often. I have one, so yeah.
I was literally just talking smack at anyone who's watching before we started this about being more computer literate than Brenton is, and he just explained to me how I'm screwing up OBS. So, comeuppance. This is comeuppance.
We're both channeling that boomer energy as we get older. So, man, I'm opening my watermelon sparkling water here. Yeah. And I got my CBD oil just coming hot off the debate. So, Bobby, you watched that whole thing. What are your thoughts?
Hold on. I don't know if you guys can hear this. That's me opening a beer. First of all, man, the freaking Chomsky-Foucault debate about human nature from the 1970s was 1 hour and 12 minutes long. That video that I just sat through thinking there'd be a quick little, I'll just, have a sit, maybe I'll have a cigar or something and listen to this lovely debate, wound up being 2 hours and 45 minutes. I ran out of tobacco.
That was so weird. Those debates, modern day debates are long, but they're not usually that long. I don't know if James was just really, really enjoying it or if he just wasn't paying attention.
Bro, I thought his, I liked the one interaction I had with James was when I did the double team debate with you, but he's a cool guy, but I thought that face was a JPEG for a minute because he was just sitting so still. I was like, oh my god. I'm like, is he gone? Is he still there?
You hear that, James? If you watch this, what you can do is you can just replace yourself with a JPEG of yourself and people won't notice.
Bro, you wasn't blinking, I swear to god.
Because I found out tonight that apparently his girlfriend's pet name for him is Mayo.
He's pretty white.
Yeah, that is true.
I've had worse.
Yeah. So, okay. So, yes, it was a really long debate. And so thank you for your service for sitting through that. I know it wasn't Afghanistan, but maybe exasperation wise, it was a little close.
A little bit, man. So, I liked your opening statement and your framing of it. I thought that went pretty well. You do a really good scripted intro for these debates, and I'll commend you for that because in college I did Lincoln Douglas debate and the National Forensics Association, and people would just do this annoying thing where they'd can a few talking points and then speak it really fast and unclear like this kind of and not breathe, and so they could get more in. But you actually elucidated your points, and that's something that's lacking in debate in general in this country. So good on you for that. I want to start with a positive.
Awesome. I figured that, I'm somewhat known for my opening statements on modern day debate. Yeah. So I wanted to get, and I figured this one's going to be one that gets seen a lot. So I wanted to get that exactly right. So, but you said you wanted to start on a positive. So now I feel like you're going to tear me a new one. So let's go.
You missed a few things philosophically that I was kind of screaming into my laptop, but not literally screaming because that would be a little crazy. But You let him frame the debate way too much because this is a conversation that you're walking into that was nominally about his YouTube moral system, which we're going to get into. And he wound up putting you on the back foot. He's really good at what he does. As you told me you were doing this debate, I think you asked me yesterday if I wanted to do this breakdown. And I actually consumed more of Destiny's content in the last 24 hours than I have in the last year. He's actually really good at what he does, and I got to give him credit for that.
Yeah.
I think his intentions are good on his channel from what I've seen. The only thing that I'd heard about him before, like the last 48 hours, was that he said that he would shoot somebody over a stick of bubble gum. So I kind of wrote him off on that. So I mean, first impressions aren't always the best, kids.
Well,
But
yeah, I mean, the Rittenhouse take was one of his worst, and it seems like he's back on Twitch again. So I'm glad about that. But yeah, the stick of gum, and we even got into that towards the end of the debate, which I was happy about to a certain extent. But yeah, so you feel like he controlled the debate a bit more, and I honestly don't disagree with you on that. And because what was weird was he was able to, I think, control the debate by giving almost no positions that I could effectively attack post the thing, because his opening statement was so incredibly short.
Yeah, it's a function of the product that he produces for Twitch and YouTube, where he's used to having like kind of call-in debates is kind of what I've seen of his channel, his formal debates too. And he does that like professionally. So it's not like you're a terrible person because you didn't see the rhetorical tricks that the professional debater was using. The guy who does this like 24 hours a day with multiple hour live streams every day. But yeah, you got to watch out for that, because in this conversation, the entire burden of proof was on him. He was the affirmative case in this for his moral system. So there should have been no point in this conversation where he put you on the back foot to talk about your moral system. And he kind of, especially when you were talking about Buddhism, he kind of put you on the defensive for your spiritual belief system too, while you should be talking about the application of his moral system. Because up until like almost the very end, there was no practical application of his axiomatic statements. And even then, and I'm sure we're going to get into this a little more, it was super, super inconsistent on his part. He actually changed the third axiom that he started with in his affirmative statement, because I was taking notes.
Okay, that's great. I didn't notice. So when did he change the third axiom?
So like when he first started off, the third axiom that he said was that you have to maximize your own experience, and he didn't go into any detail. But then at the end, he said that like he added the maximizing your experience through maximizing the experience of others, basically. Or your experience is maximized through other people having the maximum amount of experience. He never defines what maximize means. And that like really irritated
Probably would have
me.
been a good question to ask him, to tell you the truth. I mean, I was happy to be on the defensive in the realm of Buddhism, because that allows me a very large platform to speak about Buddhism.
Right, but at the same time, he's changed the subject on you.
Yeah, and that's a very good point.
And this is an adversarial form of interaction, and it's kind of like if you're boxing somebody, right? And you're an outside fighter and you want to stay on the outside, and then the other guy's trying to get inside because he has less reach. You're letting that dude in the pocket when he's changing the subject like that on you.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Interestingly enough, I was a little less guarded in this debate than I was usually going into others, like in terms of rhetoric. And ironically, it came down to something that Destiny had actually said, and I take him at his word on it, with his debate with Michael Albert. Because that was, we were analyzing that debate very much in like the way you would analyze a boxing match. And he took a lot of exception to that, in the sense that he was like, well, I was just having a discussion with Albert about like the stuff. And I'm like, you called it a debate on your channel, you know?
But it's dialectical conflict.
Yeah, exactly. But it seemed to me that he wasn't really somebody who was out for blood. And I might be able to have a better chance of actually persuading him if I was a little more charitable in how it. Because I figured after watching that, he was probably expecting me to go in and be very, debate, I guess, heavy in my rhetoric in order to win as opposed to communicate. And kind of what I wanted to show him was, no, I'm actually up to communicate here. And the idea is not necessarily to go really hard for the win, because I respected that particular position that he had put forth. Now, if tomorrow he's up, saying that, he utterly demolished me or something, I will say, okay, bad, Brent, you fell for it.
and being passive like that in a debate is
Mm-hmm.
sometimes a really good tactic, because it lulls people into kind of a false sense of security while you're using your rhetorical argumentation against the other person to tear their position down. Getting angry in a debate's never good, because it's bad for the audience, because you're really never, very rarely, going to change the interlocutor's mind in a debate. But you're trying to reach the audience, and when you get angry like that, it's not good for the audience. And when you get angry like that, the other person immediately seems more persuasive. So you didn't get angry, which is great. And I'm not saying you did. I'm just saying in general.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, there wasn't really much for me to get particularly angry about. I think the worst thing he asked me on the whole thing was he kept trying to get me to defend not using lethal force to protect yourself from rape.
Yeah.
And I was happy, by the way, that I pointed out the fact that he is actually using a form of compassion in that argument, but he's using it in a way to put me on the back foot.
Yeah, and then I was like super proud of you when you caught that, and also like definitionally in almost every moral system, and this is going to be a theme for my input on this debate. Self-defense is almost never considered murder. The definition of murder, it's killing basically without a reason to do so, or without state sanction or social sanction.
By the way, really quickly, Moon to Skeptical, a little tipsy tonight, lol. I hope the debate went well. I feel like it went well. I'm, I think that, Bobby is going to tell me all the ways I screwed up, but overall, I feel pretty good about it. So let's ruin my buzz, Bobby.
Cheers, Mundo. I'm myself am enjoying a nice local brew called High Lie, which is named after a sport that the Mafia fixed down here in Florida.
I'm backing off alcohol for a little while.
It's a good idea. Yeah. I'm getting a little bit of a beer gut, so I need to quit. But
that'll do it. COVID cookies. I was allowed to get my COVID shot early because COVID cookies pushed me just over the line, and I'm just like, wait, so I count as this? And then, so I actually went in and I was like, so do I have to like bring you a note from my doctor that says this dude's fat?
He's fat.
And the pharmacist is like, no, we can just look at you. And I'm like, well, thank you.
Oh, he's chunky.
Yeah, now get a COVID shot.
Yeah, stick him. But yeah, murder is self-defense. Is not murder in most Western moral systems. Almost all but like the strictest Buddhist moral systems that I'm familiar with don't consider self-defense murder. So like definitionally, he's kind of wrong there, and that's kind of like a theme for his moral system as I'm reading it. Actually, I'm looking at my notes now, and when you guys started talking about aliens. And he said that he didn't know how it would apply to aliens, and you didn't either. I just wrote down purge the Xeno. Like Warhammer 40K, just a little too much. Purge them all. Ender did nothing wrong.
Figure out a way to get a Warhammer 40K reference into every one of these videos. I've really got to play it one of these days.
Just watch if the Emperor had a text-to-speech device, you'll get a kick. But like when he was talking about like maximizing his own experience, I'm just thinking like there are a lot of people who consume his content that don't look deeply into philosophy or moral philosophy. And I think it was very good that you tried to give him tips on how to communicate more responsibly, because that is a huge problem on YouTube. I'm not comparing Destiny to Jordan Peterson, but like Jordan Peterson is a product of people watching YouTube videos and not understanding the underlying philosophy. And like when he's talking about like maximizing his own experience, he's basically cribbing from David Hume, who wrote a whole ass book on like what like living for the stimulation of the senses would be. And I think it's Treatise on Human Nature. I actually have a copy of it that I plug away at every now and then. Great book. And that's something that you should actually read and understand, instead of getting it from some dude who does like YouTube and Twitch videos without much in the way of qualification.
I would agree. Really quickly, by the way, I want to bring up Mark. Haven't finished your Destiny debate, but I loved the stream with him the other day, whenever that was. Yeah, I actually really liked that stream too. And that was from earlier, I guess, last week or something. That was my first interaction with him. And I'll tell you, he's a little easier to talk to than Vosh. Vosh both of them are incredible rhetoricians. And maybe Vosh, the one I was talking to Vosh, it was a little more contentious, even though I didn't want it to be contentious. But yeah, Destiny was pretty chill. And I was really worried because when I did speak with Vosh, it felt like he couldn't turn off the debating. And Destiny hit me with some hard questions and stuff, but it still felt less like a rhetorical debate and more like an actual conversation. And then I'll just put this up here because you're making me feel good. I've been really appreciating your work recently, especially the 30-second video on anarchism. That was well done. Well, thank you. I made that while I was, living in my old basement apartment in Harlem, and you can see like I'm quite a bit younger. I wasn't graying at the temples there, but yeah, that was like one of the first YouTube videos I ever put out. So I'm sorry, Bobby, I interrupted you. Please.
No. Gotta minister to the people, brother. It's almost Sunday. It's not quite Sunday. I don't know why I'm talking like a preacher. But yeah, read Hume if you want to talk about this, because Destiny never like really goes into great detail on what maximizing experience is. But like as I'm listening to this, as he's saying, like as he's going through his axioms, most moral systems since the Greeks kind of start with a question of whether people are a means to an end or an end in and of themselves. And for the history of like the Western canon, and I'll admit that I'm not as familiar with like Eastern quote unquote philosophy as I could be. I mean, I've read like Lao Tzu and some stuff, but I'm not like completely up on it. We've come to the conclusion that people are an ends and not a means. And that colors a lot of our moral philosophy. And he doesn't have that in his little 3 axiomatic statements that he did. So he kind of runs ass backwards into a couple of philosophical things. One of them is the utility monster that I was discussing with you before we started. So if your goal is to maximize your experience, it's basically, he's making like a utilitarian statement. And if there's a creature, the utility monster is Robert Nozick's one good contribution to philosophy. The rest of it is like libertarian hackery, but the utility monster is the good thing that he put out. If there's a creature that has the potential to have unlimited pleasure, then in a utilitarian system, necessarily everyone should work to maximize that creature's pleasure, right?
Right.
So it's a terrible conclusion because you have the whole society maximizing this one thing's pleasure. In his case, yes, you run right into that. If there's a person who has more potential for their experience to be maximized, they would necessarily have the rest of people as an ends to maximizing that experience. His example with murder really falls short because he says that if you murder somebody, then you're going to be put in jail. So his problem isn't with somebody using people as murder victims. His problem is somebody's not very skilled at murder. So if somebody could kill 30 people and get away with it, and that maximizes their experience, it would be fine under his moral system. Again, don't get your moral systems from people who do YouTube videos and Twitch streams professionally. I'm including myself in this, okay?
I mean, yeah, and I'm including myself as well. You know, there's much better people to get stuff from. I only hope that, you know, if by doing these streams I get somebody who's interested enough to look into like the work of Daisaku Ikeda, Alan Watts, huge Nichiren Daishonin, like
Hume. Yeah. Like if you like what Destiny's saying, read Hume.
Yeah. Hume, don't read Hobbes.
You should read Hobbes. I disagree with you on that because Hobbes is fundamentally important to understanding the state and property as it exists now.
I think Hobbes is important. The problem is that every time like someone has a terrible take, like it's something freaking Hobbesian at the core of it.
Well, yeah, because you can't stop reading Hobbes. Hobbes, you have to move on and read Locke and Rousseau afterwards, which is why those 3 are usually taught in political science courses.
And between Hobbes and Rousseau, I'm definitely more on the Rousseau end of things. I think you might be more on the Hobbesian end.
It's complicated. It's complicated because this is my field of study. So it's like I go through a lot of these guys, and it's like I think Hobbes is more correct about the state of nature. I think Rousseau is more correct about the nature of society. So Hobbes's conclusion winds up being that you need like an absolute monarchy to like keep people from being animals. And Rousseau is talking more about like, well, the famous book, The Discourse on the Origin of Inequality, where he's talking about how society enforces and establishes inequality. So I think they're important. I think Locke is also important, man. I know the capitalists love him, but
Locke is actually fundamental to my view of the state and like why the state exists and stuff. Like his second treatise on social government is huge. Him and Adam Smith, actually, surprisingly enough.
Destiny actually used some Lockean arguments towards the end when he was talking about the commune and the hypothetical labor to pick the fruit.
Right, because they mixed their labor with the land and did the thing. And then, of course, some freaking alt-right weirdo decides that that's an argument against illegal immigration.
Yeah, man, I want to give Destiny credit there because he was actually using established philosophy in that point. And I can tell that the dude's decently well read. I mean, he's cribbing from Hume for his moral system, and that's like, how many people do you know other than my sad ass who actually read Hume?
Not a lot. I know. I think he's more influenced by Ayn Rand than he really lets on. I think he's luckily gone beyond it to a certain extent and somewhat rejects it. But the objectivism and the Randian egoism is all over that stuff. But if you confront him with it, he's usually not. He's going to push back on that usually.
Yeah, I think he's moved past it. I don't know the guy personally, but I would speculate that he had more of a libertarian right-wing past before he kind of became more of a mainstream left Democrat is the impression that I get from him, which is nothing wrong with that. I'm just that's not an insult. I think that's my impression of the guy.
The mainstream left Democrats, I have issues with them, but it's not. There's worse things he could be. So, I mean, I would say I think you're right. And, it would have been interesting to hit him with that particular utilitarian argument. The thing is that I am not as familiar with Western philosophy as I should be.
Isn't that funny?
Because I'm much more familiar with Eastern philosophy. I'm much more interested, in Lao Tzu than I am in, who was it? Nozick?
Nozick, yeah. Robert Nozick was he's a libertarian.
I'm familiar with Nozick. I know who he is. But I don't read. I don't read Nozick. I get Nozick quoted at me by irritated libertarians that I think
who haven't read it, by the way.
Oh no, nobody reads this shit. So, but it would have been interesting to hit him with that. I felt like what I wanted to do a little bit more was really chip away at just the very concept of trying to maximize for yourself, because that is samsara, that is the world of hungry ghosts. It's just physically human brains are not capable of becoming happy by adding things to themselves.
See, I think you stumbled there because when he was saying that, you led with "that's the world of hungry ghosts" instead of that explanation that you just gave me. For an audience that's not intimately familiar with Eastern philosophy, give that explanation first. I'm gesturing like a wop as I'm doing this because I'm a North Jersey guy. I'm sorry. Well, you can't see me. I'm a disembodied voice. But lead with that explanation first, and then say which is called the world of hungry ghosts. Because when you're debating somebody, especially with a predominantly secular audience, which Destiny's audience is,
it's going to sound like I'm referring to a literal dimension
of hungry ghosts.
That's a good point, and I kind of knew I shouldn't have led with that as soon as that popped out. I think it just kind of I think it was a little thrown there, and that's probably why it worked its way in. All right, so continue. So what else did I do wrong?
What else did you do? I mean, that's being put on the back foot. Like there shouldn't have been a point at which you were like discussing Buddhism in comparison to his moral system. His moral system was basically on trial, and you were the prosecutor in this scenario.
Yeah, I get that. Here's the thing, though.
But I mean, you can still be polite, and you can still have a dialogue about that. But by allowing him to switch the conversation, it ceases to be about his axiomatic statements and winds up being my system is superior to your system.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is that instance. However, I really felt like people don't respond to negatives; they respond to positives. So I felt like if I had gone into that discussion and totally obliterated Destiny's moral system, but not put something else in its place that people could latch onto or cling to, I feel like I might not have done my job. I might have won the debate, but lost the conversation, if that makes sense.
That does make sense, and it might be a philosophical disagreement between how we see debate because of my background in collegiate debate. I might have a skewed perspective towards winning.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, here's something that I wanted to ask you about, because I didn't have a lot of time to write my opening statement, especially since in the middle of writing it last night, the power suddenly went out.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, due to a storm. So I had to rewrite it from the beginning today, and I only finished it about 5-10 minutes before I had to go on, which is usually me because I procrastinate on these things. But with regard to the opening statement, and I know you praised it, how do you think the fact that I opened with that particular Bible quote, John 1:1, and went back and closed with it, like, was that reading or did you feel that really read to the audience and kind of got what I was trying to get across with regard to how Destiny was approaching his moral system as a Christian approaches finding the proper God and comporting themselves? Or do you think that was just a little too highbrow for people?
I thought it came across great, but I'm a little bit highbrow myself, so I might not be the right person to ask. It was a good framing because a lot of people who are listening to this in the English-speaking world, you pointed this out, are heavily influenced by Christian mythology and Christian eschatology or whatnot throughout their lives. So they're going to be familiar with the Bible, at least at a passing level. So it was a great way to frame your metaphor. And it was clear that you weren't delivering a Christian sermon. You didn't get up and say, like, destiny is wrong because the Bible says this. It was clearly like, these are moral axioms. I'm using axiom too much, that we've had in our culture for centuries. And this is how we have evolved to kind of see moral philosophy. The problems only came when he presented 3 really super vague axioms, never defined them, and then started attacking you. And I don't think that he did that. I don't think he had bad intentions in doing that. I don't think that he's a bad actor necessarily. Again, I don't know much about the guy. I think that's just the way that he presents his content and the way he's used to having these conversations. So
because there was very little that I could attack, because besides the initial video that he put out, and I hadn't watched enough of his content to see supposedly that he continued to do stuff on this, there was very little that I could attack because he was so terse and short-spoken right at the beginning. I actually expected him to immediately come out and attack a number of points within my opening statement, but it seemed like he either didn't remember it or just preferred to have me restate it, which was weird. I have not been in a debate where I have ever had to go back to the opening statement to refer to an argument I'd already made for someone else. Usually once it's like the opening statement's out and then go, and basically the conversation leads itself till eventually James cuts everything off, which was where James had us going so long we had to cut it off.
I ran out of cigar, man. I'm set. I had a 60 ring gauge cigar, man. That was a big cigar for this debate. There's also kind of a thing I kind of wanted to address in his whole perception of reality, is that this is a serious problem that we're addressing, especially in a very STEM-focused society right now. His moral system kind of bogs down into kind of scientism, not necessarily like actual science, but scientism. And that's a real problem because science itself comes from philosophy. The continental philosophy and continental philosophers in philosophy and in serious academic thought are, I don't want to say more highly regarded, but they're more enduring for a reason than people even like Bertrand Russell, who is a pillar of analytical philosophy, because human behavior isn't necessarily mathematical. And when he said that I could explain this moral system to a robot, you could explain any system to a robot. A robot is just inputs, There's
I was getting at that. Maybe I didn't push hard enough on it, but I agree that his audience, and what I tried to bring up, they're not robots, they're people, and they're not motivated primarily by logical inputs.
I mean, like the entire field of economics is predicated on like people acting rationally, and every 5 to 10 years we see that that's incorrect.
Yeah, massively incorrect. And so, like, again, the debate did get it kind of lagged a little bit because we sort of, if I'm remembering this correctly, we did the opening statement. We went back and forth a bit about perfection.
Yeah.
Which again, and let me ask you something on this, because the use of my 3 examples, did you feel that was strong? Because it's such a hard point to argue when somebody who's very influenced by scientism, and I'm the basically that kind of smart guy that we have all run into forums like before, who's not really comfortable with imperfections and anxiety and things being a little loose. So the prickly person as opposed to the kind of loosey-goosey person. Do you feel like I sufficiently poked enough holes with those particular examples, or do you feel like it was just such a hard uphill battle that I probably was not being as persuasive as I should have been on that point? Maybe I shouldn't have challenged him on it specifically. So what's your thought on that, Bobby?
I pushed the mute button. I'm sorry.
It's like, oh God, I killed him.
Oh my God, you killed Bobby. I had an aneurysm. No, I think you did a good job. I think that your examples were good. I think you needed to make that case a lot more forcefully, considering the audience that he's bringing, because he's bringing an audience that's influenced by scientism, mm-hmm. like the audience for like the secular YouTube types.
Yeah,
I don't want to. I'm not talking smack about you if this applies to you, but if this applies to you, maybe examine yourself.
Yeah, rethink your life.
And I was at this point at one point in my life too, so I'm talking about me too here, guys. If you're like completely rejecting anything that's not scientific or mathematical, mm-hmm. You're rejecting a lot of essential cultural and humanistic analysis. So when you have one of these people who says that there's nothing other than science, everything is STEM, philosophy is dead,
yeah,
and they're coming to that, you really, really need to point out the roots of science in philosophy, the roots of mathematics in philosophy, the philosophical implications of mathematics and philosophy. At the very end, somebody was talking about geometry and saying mm-hmm. geometry is a closed perfect system. Geometry as a mathematical discipline is constantly expanding.
Yeah,
and the goal of perfection, and this is me talking.
Yeah, I wonder if that was really a math PhD, or that was someone who wished they were a math PhD.
Yeah, I doubt it. No mathematics. I've met a lot of mathematics PhDs. They're really weird people, and I say that as a weird person. Every field of mathematics, including arithmetic, is expanding constantly. There's always new mathematical theorems, always new discoveries. If you're asking for my kind of view of the universe, perfection is a pursuit. It's not a state that we're ever going to reach.
Yeah, which is something that I tried to kind of get across to him, that the pursuit, it seemed like he was confusing the pursuit of perfection with the existence of actual perfection.
Correct. And he also misses something that a lot of people miss. Is that they assume that the logic that they're using is perfect. Mm-hmm. And it's not. The logic that you're using is contingent on your senses, your perception of the world, your mood that day. I mean, we have formal rules of logic. We have formal logic. We have informal logic. We have all these different types of logic, but none of them are perfect. If you read like Descartes, when he talks about like, how do you know that the product of your senses isn't like the deception of some wickedly clever demon? And thank you, demon, because you invented tacos al pastor. But you don't completely know. The only thing that you really know in Descartes' worldview is cognito ergo sum, which he kind of references in his axiomatic statements. I exist. But
and this relates back to when Destiny kind of begged the question when he was like, oh, my moral system can convince a racist old man to be okay with black people because he'll see that it still benefits from black people benefiting him. the racism is the reason he can't see that.
Yeah. So can Marxist-Leninism, and Marxist-Leninism is certainly not a perfect system. No offense to any Marxist-Leninists. Neoliberal capitalism can convince somebody to be not racist because it's not profitable. Ayn Randian objectivism can persuade someone to view all human life as equally worthless in pursuit of the Übermensch. But that's not a perfect moral system. The dream of a perfect moral system is kind of a product of the industrial culture that we've built, in that like we want to put person A through process B and add capability C. So we want a moral system. Our STEM focused system wants a Cards can sling his hook. My logic is impeccable. Hell yeah.
By the way, as long as there's two things I wanted to highlight here. As long as we're slightly broken there, that's freaking amazing. By the way, I'm just gonna put that up.
Thank you, man. That gave me a good chuckle.
So Munda Skeptical. So you went with the word of the good Lord. That's interesting. I didn't just do that. I went with Erasmus of Rotterdam's 15th century translation of the Bible that uses the word logos as conversation, and it actually makes genocide, like it makes John 1:1 make sense.
Cool kids just say Erasmus though.
Yeah. Well, damn it, I'm from a Catholic background, and if I just say Erasmus, I know there's going to be some people in my freaking family that think I'm talking about Saint Erasmus, which I am not. But yeah, and Munda Skeptical, this is the other one. I was a math major back in college. I can confirm that. Oh, great. Send me a message and make sure that I got Gödel's incompleteness theorem correct. I'm pretty sure I did. But
I wasn't familiar with that one. I'll be dead honest.
Okay. Well, yeah, a lot of people aren't. I'd known about it. The way I found out about this, not being a math guy, is a very good friend of mine was in college and basically stumbled onto Gödel's incompleteness theorem just on their own from a weird direction, and freaked out and like took it to the professor and was like, I just disproved math. And the professor's just like, oh, I haven't seen them get it from that way before. And proceeded to explain to him that math is not perfect. It is a tool that we use, and there will be problems with it. But it's, just because mathematical system, like axiom-based systems, are always either incomplete or contradictory, even if we don't see the contradictions, is something that it's something that like a lot of people don't understand, particularly if they're influenced by the kind of scientism that, cultural scientism that you think is driving destiny in some of his audience.
And like I was saying, that we want to put person A through process B, add capability C. We want to put person A through standardized process B and create moral person C. And that's not how morality or ethics has ever worked in history.
That was my third point, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a great point, by the way. And I just, if you're listening to this and you're a fan of Destiny's, I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm saying that his thinking on this one is kind of flawed, and that if you really kind of, Kenneth Burke, who's a communications scholar, I'm trying to put this in accurate and decent terms, and I haven't scripted this out, so bear with me, audience. Thank you, guys. He talked about how people had evolved originally with magical thinking exclusively, like in the far past. We evolved to scientific thinking, and that's become dominant when he was writing. And he speculated kind of in the 60s that I think it was the 60s, I could be wrong, that eventually that would evolve into what he called like magical scientism, where it would be kind of like a Hegelian synthesis of magical thinking and scientific thinking.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And that's kind of what's happening. And we're using science in a way that the philosophy of science is not meant to be used. If you read Popper, and Popper hasn't survived unscathed through the decades, and talking about like falsifiability. And if you read the original people who came up with the scientific method, you'll understand that, like you were saying, the scientific method is a tool. But as we're trying to blend the scientific method into things that it wasn't meant to be used for, or arithmetic and mathematics into things that it wasn't meant to be used for, we get these like absurd graphs, which is why I don't like analytical philosophy. Because like if you read analytical philosophy, you're going to get these like equations that look like calc equations for like humanistic concepts, and it doesn't really work. And I think that's the problem with his moral system, is he's trying to make a very simple equation to create a moral person.
Oh my God, he's doing the life equation instead of Darkseid's
anti-life equation. Yeah, at least he's like well motivated, and he doesn't have omega beams. You know?
Thank God Destiny does not have omega beams.
That was the Snyder cuts of freaking debates, though. Freaking 2 hours and 45 minutes. Smoked a giant JFR cigar.
I don't know why James didn't cut it off sooner than that.
Bro, I think he was taking a nap. I'm sure that was a JPEG now. JPEG confirmed.
Yeah, I almost wonder if I made some mistakes towards the end just because of just exhaustion.
Yeah, it was kind of, it's kind of, yeah, I mean,
I think that's when he got me into the thing.
Policy talk. Yeah.
Well, I'm okay with a policy talk. The thing
not in that context, though, because I'm sorry to interrupt you, and I'm not trying to browbeat you. I promise. In that context, it should never have gotten to a policy talk. It should have been the logical implications of his moral system. Like talk about like if somebody's maximizing their experience, and you guys were discussing racism, right? Back to the utility monster we were discussing earlier. If the majority of the population is had their experiences maximized through racism, then under his system, that would be a justifiable system.
Yeah, which by the way, Destiny, if you're listening to this, you're going to have to reckon with that. Yeah, that it would justify racism at a time when the majority of the planet is racist, because I should have had you just like in my ear through the whole thing, pulling like a Cyrano de Bergerac.
Cyrano de Bergerac, I love that play. But this isn't a new conclusion either. This was a classical critique of utilitarianism when Bentham came up with it. And the thing that's evolved to kind of in utilitarian circles to deal with that is called rule utility, where you come up with rules for the utilitarianism to prevent something like a literal critique of utilitarianism, where if you butchered somebody and distributed their organs for 5 people, that would maximize happiness. Yeah. And you need rule utility to keep something awful like that from happening. Yeah.
Well, it's not even just that. You need to be concerned. So like utilitarianism, the thing that it's interesting that we didn't get into this, but probably because I got pulled down a freaking rabbit hole. Thank you, ADD, and thank you for being fascinated by a lot of the discussions the extra discussions that we had.
It was the vaccine.
It was definitely the vaccine. Dude, I get amazing 5G reception. And I bought like a bunch of Microsoft products. I don't know why.
Do me a favor, buy some Apple. I need my dividend check.
That's great. So like the issue with utilitarianism, if you want to kind of look at this in a more complete way, and why you need to use both deontology and utilitarianism together to try to come to more moral outcomes, is that the problem with killing one guy to harvest his organs to save 5 is the precedent that creates. I mean, beyond the fact that you've just murdered a man, and decided that, but you've essentially decided that any one member of society can be deprived for life if it serves everybody else within society. And if we actually did that, if we actually had that as a legal precedent, it would just devolve to us killing the poor to steal their organs.
Yeah. And like Kant addressed this too in Critique of Pure Reason, when he was talking about like a priori knowledge leading to a posteriori. I can't pronounce that. I don't speak Latin. Conclusions. So like this isn't new in philosophy. A posteriori, a priori. I should know this in pre-law, but I don't speak much Latin. But like. Again, that's another book that you should probably read if you're trying to formulate a moral system. And I think he is familiar with Kant, because you guys were sort of dancing around the categorical imperative too.
Yeah, he is familiar with Kant. I don't know how familiar with Kant.
Yeah, again, I don't know the guy, and I'm assuming. And you know what? I'm going to give him another positive thing here. Yeah, Antonio, I can see you
A
writing it out.
posteriori.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You actually pronounced it. I'm like, bro, like typing it out in text. I've read it and I still can't pronounce it. Like, thank you though. Thank you for your effort.
Yeah. Hang on here. There's a couple things I want to cite here. So we have from Munda Skeptical, all modern math is basically axiomatic systems. You need to accept certain axioms, postulates to even begin. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. But we don't realize that because it's presented to us when we're like children, as like arithmetic and multiplication.
Yeah. And that this is just the way that everything works. And it's so hard to argue someone out of that because I think it seriously will unbalance their worldview and they have an emotional need for it to not be true because that makes things more. And then here, let's see what we've got here. From Antonio, there is no single scientific method. You have to acknowledge the uncertainty with every approximation you make. That's what differentiates physics from even other sciences like biology. Yes, thank you.
Yes, that's a great take, man.
And
like applause.
I gotta say, I feel like with all the garbage that's on the internet, you guys who are like in the chat right now, who interact with me, you all are like actually not idiots most of the time. But like, I'm very happy with the small community that is being built around this right now, because all of you are like really smart and well spoken and you're not spamming memes.
yeah, man. And you're actually listening to me talk about like Kant and Hume, so extra super credit for you guys right there. He was talking to I'm going to bring up some more dead European people about maximizing their experience in relation to the judgments of other people. He's kind of talking about like Foucault there, where people have like a need to be judged, sort of. And Foucault famously uses the analogy of the panopticon. If you're not familiar with the panopticon, imagine a prison. Foucault also loved the prison metaphors, where it's a circular prison. All the cells are on the inside of the circle. And in the middle, there's a single guard tower with the windows blanked out. So none of the prisoners know if they're being looked at by the guards at any one given time. And every prisoner will behave in a manner in which they think that they're being judged. So that's kind of what he's talking about there. And you can make an argument, and I personally do, that our society has kind of evolved to like a digital panopticon, where we post everything that we do on social media in anticipation of likes or dislikes and judge ourselves based on that.
Judge me, daddy.
Yeah, exactly. People have said like God is a dream of good government, and secular people, and me included, have made the argument that God is a function of people's need to have their actions constantly judged. He's a perfectly all-knowing, all-judging being.
It would make sense why we're getting more secular in the age where we've
replaced that judgment with the camera on our telephones.
Yeah, the camera on our telephones and OnlyFans and
I think his moral system is a symptom of that, because he's assuming that people want to be judged positively, which is not incorrect. It's not an incorrect statement, but I think that he was kind of betraying his very contemporary nature in that. It's a very telling sign of our times when people assume that everyone wants to be judged and affirmed constantly. It is.
See, this is the best, by the way, Antonio. Gee, wouldn't it be horrible if something?
Yeah, wouldn't it just, bro? I was making a joke. Actually, this afternoon I was sitting in a cigar bar with a friend. He was talking about like the 5G and how they're going to be watching all of us. I'm like, brother, I was in the military. I had a lot of like sensitive training. I worked in the Pentagon. I had just bought like 500 gallons of like nitrogen-rich fertilizer. If I'm not already on the list,
like I always like to think that if the government is watching me, at first I thought, well, it would be cool if like the particular FBI agent or NSA person who watches me, like if they're like a fan of my work, that would be nice. Like they buy my comics.
It's an algorithm.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I actually think it's funnier if they hate my work.
Oh.
And they're just sitting there like, you hacked them.
Wrong. He's wrong. Dislike.
But it's so weird to keep reading all this shit and watching this.
He comes home to his wife. Like, how was your day, honey? I read issue 4 of Snow White Zombie Apocalypse. How do you think my day was?
Oh, dude, issue 4 is going to be amazing. We got the art for it completed, and holy shit, I can't wait. So that's really exciting. The art for Durruti is also coming in really well. So.
You showed me one of them. I really liked it.
Yeah. We have for those of you watching, we in the Durruti comic, and you will hopefully be able to see some of it very soon. Certain philosopher that both Bobby and me like to talk about makes an appearance.
He likes to smoke.
He likes to smoke. Yeah, it's Camus. Camus is in the book, and possibly Picasso. I'm not sure.
You know, I can never place Picasso's face. Like, even though I've seen photos of him, it's a weird.
Well, it's like Picasso. The only Picasso that I can normally remember is like the super old like Picasso,
like from F is for Fake.
Yeah, and so like that image drives all other images of Picasso out of my head. So like if he is in the book, I won't recognize it because he's being drawn as a young person. But yeah, and by the way, I did not say draw Camus in this book. My artist just did that because they're amazing.
See, I always picture Picasso as Alfred Molina from the movie Modigliani because I saw that when I was like 16.
So let's continue here.
Yeah.
Wait, where were we? I got.
We were talking about scientism.
Right. We were definitely talking about scientism, but I just meant specifically with regard to destiny. So I'm seeing what you're talking about with the scientism. And I think it's odd that I didn't say scientism. I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I think that would have been too easy to push back and say, no, this isn't scientism. But I think I was kind of pointing that out when low-key pointing it out when I was talking about, like, again, he's trying to design this freaking system for robots and he's removing compassion from it. And we went back, he pushed back really hard on compassion. And yeah, like, what were your thoughts around that?
I was thinking Ayn Rand the whole time. Because he was really channeling like Ayn Rand and like a lot of contemporary like right-wingers, relatively right-wingers when he was saying that. It sounded like vaguely fascist too, and he's definitely not a fascist. So I thought that was really, really weird, because the most famous people who push back on compassion and you have to be the man of iron are fascists.
Yeah.
And
I didn't expect that, but I'm not surprised. Again, I feel like it's an aspect of toxic masculinity.
It might be.
Like, there's just a lot of guys that aren't comfortable talking about their feelings, and it works into they're not comfortable feeling compassion for other people within society who maybe have it worse. Like, it was so weird to me that he was like, you see a homeless man on the ground and there's a $20 bill, and most people's first instinct is going to be, can I get away with stealing the $20 bill from the homeless guy?
Yeah, well, I mean, like his initial statement of like, I have to maximize my experience, and only later did he say through other people. Yeah, implies that people are an ends to maximizing the experience. So it makes sense that somebody who would view people as an ends and not a means would think that, and that's the kind of danger of that sort of coldly mathematical sort of moral system, is that you get things like that. And
you worship the society that produces the most guns and butter, except instead of guns and butter, he's talking about happiness units.
Yeah, and if you have compassion too, you kind of have to examine the injustice in the world around you, and that doesn't jive with the neoliberal system that we're putting forward.
No, it really does.
So you have to completely re-examine that, and I don't get the impression that that's a project that he's up for.
No, he does. Yeah, I wouldn't.
I don't want to put words in his mouth.
Yeah. Well, no, he's got a style and he's got a brand, and part of that, part of the appeal, I think, is kind of embodying certain aspects of that neoliberal ideology. Whether I don't think he's doing it on purpose, but like, again, the feeling that I get from him is very much the same kind of feeling that I got from other people that I would argue with in like the pre-Web 2.0 forums. It's something that I see in a lot of young men, something that was present in me and still is probably to a certain extent. But it's very hard to talk about without trying to sound like you're trying to slander someone, which is not what I would be looking to do with it.
Yeah.
but at the same time, like, it was key when we finally got to, and I really should have immediately asked him, define compassion.
Yeah, well,
It's a very different definition.
You should have asked him to define every single one of his terms, because when you're in a debate like this, you have to go full Wittgenstein.
Yeah.
And I mean, language is used to an extent, but you have to define your terms very, very clearly, so you don't have these kind of like metaphysical misunderstandings in these kinds of debates. And that was Wittgenstein's thing. He also might have caused the Holocaust, but that's a different story.
Oh my! We'll talk about that on a different stream.
Yeah.
So, like, do you feel like when we got into that, do you feel like I came across as weak? Because the thing is, when talking about compassion, especially with a certain audience of people who really want to be the prickly, hard-nosed, clear-eyed, new atheist, kind of debater, you start talking about something like the necessity of compassion within any ethical system, and you just instantly get a pushback that, like, oh no, you're just a pussy. Like,
yeah, you kind of were at a disadvantage, because I assumed a similar definition of compassion to the one that you were using, but you were kind of at a disadvantage because you didn't know that he was kind of talking out cross purposes with you, which is why it's important to get those definitions out of the way as soon as possible in a debate.
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
And the good thing about doing that early in the future is that once they give their definition, if it differs wildly from yours, you can attack that definition. Instead, kind of what happened was he sort of wound up interrogating you, which again is not what you wanted to have in that conversation. It should have been
definitely not. If I were looking for a traditional win, which again, going into it, I really wasn't. Maybe I should have.
And then that's my skewed perception. So I think you did a good job, man. So I don't think this is me. No,
that's all right. I'm going to go drink myself into a stupor. No, I feel really good about it. This is
you should.
It's about the biggest debate I've done. I had the only debate that I had more anxiety before going into really was the debate against Eric Stryker and Enoch, and also J.F. Garapé. Not because not because I worried about their arguments, but more because it is very, very dangerous to talk to those people. Whereas with Destiny, I really was worried because, this is his job. He's an incredible rhetorician, and
he is very good at what he does.
Yeah, and I would have figured that there would be a lot of pressure on him for a win, quote unquote, after seeing us critique his debate in a very kind of technical debate sense, like the kind of critique that you would have really liked. In fact, did you watch that at all with me? And
I didn't get a chance. I've been super busy this last week.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Knife in my heart. But no, it was, we did a 2-part breakdown of one of his debates.
There was something that I was doing this week that takes precedence over watching debates. And I'll let you take a minute to guess what that would be over the course of the week.
Well, now I know.
Yeah, okay.
That definitely does take precedence over debates. Please. So, So anyway, overall, I feel good about it. I also feel like one of his fans who kind of also knows me and was sort of the person that quasi arranged this, in that what they did was immediately when I got done with Ben Burgess, they reached out to me and were like, holy shit, he's talking about you on his channel. And so I went and saw it on the channel and was like, oh, he agreed to debate me. This is wonderful, because I tried to get him to debate me earlier on this, and obviously no go. So after I had summoned him, it was important to know that. And then, it was cool to kind of be on his channel and talk about it, and then eventually building up to this debate. And hopefully, this will get more people interested in myself, and also, a slightly deeper form of philosophy and a more morality that does not revolve around scientism and creating happiness units like guns and butter.
Yeah, absolutely. Frankly speaking, like what you just said, you're absolutely dead on in that, just kind of appearing in this forum and getting more exposure is an absolute win for you. So, I mean, like that dude's got like something like what 1-2 million YouTube subscribers,
something like that. Yeah, he's way up there. Hang on, let's look him up. Let me look him up and see. So
see who's faster at typing.
You'll probably get to him first, but because Destiny YouTube.
Destiny, whoa, oh, he's
how many subscribers?
Clickety click, 345,000. That's way lower than I thought it was.
Oh,
on
really?
YouTube. Yeah,
345,000
on YouTube. I don't know what it is on Twitch.
But he's also Twitch and stuff. I would have figured he would have been over 1 million. But who knows? He's got some other channels too. Either way, I have 15. I have a little over 1,500 subscribers.
He's got 578,000 on Twitch.
Yeah. Well, I really feel like subscriber wise, there's a point in YouTube's algorithm probably where you just hit exponential growth because you're able to get big enough.
Right, with the algorithm.
Yes, and I hope to get there. Thank you. Please bless me, mighty algorithm. And for those of you watching, if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe, all that crap. Yeah. So anyway, so I think this did a good job of elevating a lot of the ideas that I've been working very hard to get into the zeitgeist. And that, again, was another reason why I was a little happy to talk about Buddhism and some other forms of philosophy and some other philosophical stances that are not this particular kind of scientism.
Yeah, and again, it's a good thing to push back on that in a convincing way with somebody with that audience. So I think that was a mitzvah on your part to do that one.
Excellent.
That's my New York coming out. Oh, sorry, you were saying?
No, you were about to say something, so I
lost it.
Yeah. Well, you got lost staring into my eyes.
I did, yeah. It's actually the gargoyle.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he's wonderful. You notice I've got some gnomes back there too.
I do. I don't know if he's going to be angry at me for saying this, but my former now co-host, because he got too busy to keep up with the show, and I were in the military together. And he had a gnome that somebody gave him randomly. And we were both Warhammer players with the miniatures. So he actually painted the gnome in multicam. And then he painted kill notches on his little gnome cane. We called him Carl the Gnome. And it's don't look at Carl, man. He's got notches on his cane.
That's incredible.
I freaking love Carl.
Yeah, I got the gnomes. I'm going to be setting up. I've got a sculpture garden set up in the woods behind my house, and I've got a little trail for my son on it. And I've been taking him on it lately. And so, I've got the Green Man and a statue of Buddha, another statue of Bodhisattva Jizo. Some Chinese lady, and a bunch of weird shit, like a sculpture of the Four Seasons. I'm trying to make it as magical as possible so that, as Gavin grows up, he just remembers that as a really awesome and magical place. And the gnomes, along with several others, there's going to be a village of gnomes.
Oh, that's neat, man.
Yeah, and I'm going to move them around when he's not looking.
But are you putting the Emperor of Mankind out there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's another 40K reference just to
another one of these. I thought you were saying that my son would grow up to be the Emperor of Mankind.
Hey, maybe. Oh, shoot. If he is, I gotta get in good with you.
I hope not. You have to be some kind of freaking sociopath to want that.
Now whose bedtime is it, Dad?
Lately he's been attacking me whenever he sees me because he's been watching. I let him watch. He's a toddler, and I let him watch some TV for kids that are a bit older, just because I got bored of all the toddler stuff. So he was watching the Rescue Riders, and I think it may have been just a little too much for him because now he's imitating it and becoming characters from the show himself. He'll describe himself as this, and then he'll have narratives about people that are right out of the show. So today we saw a girl walking down the street taking some logs back to her place, and he's like, "We've got to stop her!" And I'm like, no, I think she's fine. He's like, "Oh, all right."
You were preventing him from maximizing his experience, so that was a very immoral thing for you to do for Destiny's system.
It definitely was. I'm sure. By the way, so what I thought was weird was when we got into the stuff about the state, and I actually want to follow up this with a debate on the state with him.
Yeah.
But like,
I think you would do I think that would go better than this one.
Okay, good. That would be, yeah. And I think I'd be more inclined to attack more heavily on that because I wasn't trying to slander the guy or anything.
We should discuss the social contract sometime because it's funny that I'm like the furthest left person I know and you're further left than me on that one.
Yeah. Well, the social contract, like he really, really wanted to push strongly to the idea that if you are benefiting from the state, the state is allowed to control you.
That's basically Hobbes's argument.
Yeah, it's a horrible argument. Like again, that's just every authoritarian dad being like, "You ate my food. You under this house, you obey my rule." No,
you have to preface Hobbes by understanding that he came out of like a decade of brutal civil war. And his goal was to not have that happen again. So, like, we think of Hobbes a lot of the time in a way that
stuffed tiger. To tell you the truth,
you think of him. Say again. I'm sorry.
As a stuffed tiger.
Oh yeah, there's a Calvin and Hobbes. Yeah, but like we think of like Thomas Hobbes, the philosopher, as kind of this like malevolent, like authoritarian guy. But he's really somebody who's like deeply, deeply damaged by the English Civil War, and he's trying to prevent it from happening again. It's kind of like Machiavelli. When you read Machiavelli, you're not supposed to read that as a guide necessarily. You're supposed to read that as somebody who's like deeply damaged by like the poisoning princes of the Renaissance, and this is the politics that came out of that.
Yeah. Here we go. So you had a choice: live in society or die.
Yeah, basically that's Hobbes.
And Destiny came out of years of Twitch streaming. Both are difficult.
Oh, brutal.
Okay, Antonio.
Savage. That was great. I love that one.
Yeah.
Give that man a thumbs up.
Absolutely. And there's also leaves out your contributions to the state in the form of taxes and labor, etc. Yeah. It was interesting also because we had a debate towards the end where I was like, yeah, taxation is theft, but I also think it's good. It's better than the alternative usually. And he was like, how could theft be good? And I'm like, well, because property is theft and theft is not objective. that was really fun, and I got him to agree on that. I was happy about that. I was a bit sad that it was completely off topic and took place like at the end of the debate where most won't see it.
Yeah, and again, that was kind of like that was a really good point that you made. At the same time, that would have been time that you could have been interrogating, like, what does maximization mean? What does, like, I exist, how do you know? Like, is your logic perfect? How do you know that? Like,
well, maybe he'll watch this and get pissed off, and you will summon him. And then
I'll happily have I'll happily have a conversation with him. I've got like 39 subscribers and I haven't done content in like 4 months, but I'll do it, bro. I'm stupid.
Well, I'm stupid.
Oh no, man! Like that's little Bob advice for life for anyone who's listening in the audience, right? If you're ever in trouble and you think like that you're going to get into a physical confrontation with somebody, tell them you're stupid because it is the most terrifying thing. Let's fight. I'm stupid. Let's go.
Whoa, this guy's stupid. It means
yeah. What do you mean he's stupid? If nothing else, it'll give him like a second or two to like run.
There's a lot of ways to deal with a fight that does not involve talking. I got to do my anecdote about when I was
that was a good analogy too with the martial arts.
Yeah,
apply that to debating too.
It was fun. You're talking about my analogy that actually hitting and getting hit is like that's a lot of that is the essence of Buddhism. Like, and the fact that the enemy is the greatest spiritual friend. It felt like he hadn't encountered that kind of stuff. So I'll take
a lot of people in the West haven't.
Yeah, I'll take the news subscriber like a man. Yeah, well, it's because we're so individualistic.
Yeah.
And we're so focused on the individual, we miss the fact that the individual in the background. I loved, by the way, that he actually went with me on like on fucking Brahmin.
Yeah.
I did not expect that. But from what I heard, he's done a bunch of mushrooms. So
Oh, good for him, man.
yeah. And apparently they freaked him out a bit, which, yeah, if you try to hold on to your ego, you're going to lose it.
And you know what? Like, I'm really trying to be very nice to this guy because I think he's a good actor in general. But the sheer hubris of somebody on like a Twitch or YouTube stream to say that they've like solved morality is like mind-boggling. And I don't like I on one hand, I like admire him for trying to make a moral system. That's like a cool undertaking. On the other hand, the sheer hubris of this thing, like, okay, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I know just what you know. Tis vanity. It's
yeah.
You know, at the same
I'm sorry,
time. But you know, you kind of gotta respect it to a certain extent. I will say he's not as bad as others.
Dude, if you're listening to this dude instead of like Jordan Peterson or Sam Harris, who got brought up at the end of the debate, or like Eric Weinstein or whoever, like, yeah, you're doing great, man. Like this dude's not a bad dude. Like,
no, I don't think he is at all. And which is good because he has a very bad reputation among some sections of the online left. But also, I'm learning very quickly that a lot of the online left are fucking idiots.
Most people are idiots
who just want to like spam memes and feel superior to people and do nothing else. And it's very frustrating.
We've talked about the culture industry and emotional validation enough for you to know that.
Yeah, but like he's not like Stefan Molyneux level of.
Oh
like,
no, dude, he's not even in the same country.
Yeah. There was because we brought that up. There was Molyneux and
Harris.
Yeah, and Harris and Jordan Peterson. A lot of people and. Arguably me in the sense that I am somewhat speaking outside of my area of expertise in that I am an artist, but I also feel like a lot, you know, I at least read the philosophy that I'm going to be expounding, you know?
And as I say, he's being like insanely like presumptuous, which I think he kind of is. He's not even on the order of magnitude that you guys brought up Harris towards the end. He's not even on the order of magnitude of Sam Harris thinking that he solved the Izot gap. Like,
yeah,
like he's not, he's being like
he admits that Harris was wrong about solving the Izot gap though. It was nice to have him say that as well.
Well, everyone should, because Sam Harris is like at best a sophist and at worst a fascist enabler.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think I could still probably have a conversation with him because, you know, I do like the Buddhism that he has begun to work in, even though, again, it's like he's got the new atheist ethic and the Western individualism, and then in comes the Buddhism, and I'm so worried. It's like that freaking Randian who put out his dark Buddhism.
I haven't been familiarized with that, and I don't want to be.
Nobody knows. I shouldn't have even brought it up. It's like it's a website that like 5 people have visited. One of the 5 is freaking me, and it's mainly a guy who was having a lot of problems, and a therapist suggested he start looking into Buddhism as opposed to just reading Ayn Rand and stuff. And then it was him trying to synthesize Buddhism.
I'm sorry. I'm chuckling because I'm picturing what the therapist is telling the guy about Ayn Rand, and it's not suitable for YouTube. I'll tell you once the stream ends.
This right there, this is the worst thing about Harris.
Okay, if anyone talks about like a group of people question, like you got to be super skeptical.
Yeah. Hang on. Here we go. It reminds me of a conversation I had a guy with a convention. Oh yes, convention. By the way, I hope that Dragon Con will be back this year and I can be there again with Khrushchev.
EDC is happening this year, brother.
Oh, wait. What the fuck is EDC?
Electronic Dance Convention or Electronic Daisy Convention?
How the hell would I know what that is?
I don't know. You're millennial. You probably have done more X than I have, which is none in my case.
As far as the YouTube censors and the fact that my son might watch this in the future, none.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It reminds me of a conversation I had with a guy at a convention who thought he had devised a more correct conception of quantum mechanics. he'd been a petroleum engineer. Yeah.
We had this thing when I was taking AP European history in my senior year of high school, where we had to go judge a science fair for some reason, because that makes sense. And this kid was saying that his grandfather invented a perpetual motion device. And like no one had like the temerity to tell this kid that like no, he didn't.
Yeah, he definitely did not.
But like sometimes I think
we obey the laws of thermodynamics.
But like sometimes I think of that kid and I wonder, like, if he's like in his like mid or late 20s now, does he still think his grandfather invented perpetual motion?
Quite possibly, you know. Yeah. Pretty much all the new atheists are unimpressive. Here's the thing: the new atheists were very influential on me in a bad way, but also kind of in a good way.
I had my phase too.
Yeah, it's an important phase that every young man goes through. The phase where he decides God doesn't exist and puts on a fedora. And I didn't actually put on a fedora. I put on a fedora years later. And by the way, I look really good.
You know what infuriates me about that is I have a really nice fedora, and I went to Panama and I have a really nice Panama hat, and I can't wear either one of them.
Just wait 10 years. Maybe people will have forgotten about that.
There was like a golden time between like 2004 and 2005 when you could get away with it, and now not anymore.
Well, I'll tell you, like, so the new atheists really like I loved that they did a good job of taking down the religious right and creationists in the sense that you got to remember Iraq, we went to war in part because George Bush believed that God chose him to be president. And, you know, they made a core constituency behind him. So they deserved to get taken down a peg by the new atheists. But then, of course, the new atheists went and signed off on Iraq because, you know, they're so hard-nosed and essentially the logic of Western empire is built into the new atheist movement through their, veneration of the Enlightenment.
And it's a weird rejection of the way that international order has worked in what we call the West since the Peace of Westphalia, because since the Peace of Westphalia, we've had this conception of sovereignty where this is like a very summarized, truncated version of this because this is not the subject of this stream, but like you can govern the internal politics of your country so long as they don't infringe on the workings of other countries. And there's a very like reaction against that in neoconservatism that was kind of embraced by the people you're talking about. And if you want to read about that,
or if you want to see the opposite of it, go watch a bunch of tankies, decide that, it's actually great that China's conquering all these countries that are actually
Yeah, well, that's a conception of world order that's actually based in like Chinese history, where the Chinese Empire viewed the world in kind of concentric circles of varying tribute to China. And even in the Peaceful Rise, you're kind of seeing remnants of that, because China's a really weird system where like we can go back maybe 10 or 20 years when we're talking about like foreign policy. The farthest we go back is like World War II as Americans. When you're talking to like Chinese government officials, there was an incident in like the 60s where Mao went back like 2,500 years to reference like how to deal with India, and it actually worked, which is like really weird to deal with. Like
history to pull from, I suppose.
Yeah, it's something that we can't appreciate in America because we're so young as a country. When we're dealing with countries like China, which is actually going to be kind of sort of the subject of the next little series of videos that I'm actually trying to put out, but I'll get to that later.
By the way, the U.S. did not abide by the Treaty of Westphalia.
No, God, no. We weren't signatories to it either.
Yeah, fair enough.
We didn't exist at the time.
China is so mad. Wait, China's mad at the UK?
I haven't heard. I haven't been paying attention.
I'm not surprised. It's always great to be mad at the UK, but I wonder
England out of England.
Let's see, right here, Cosmic Fox.
I said it.
It doesn't matter if you had a bad debate so long as you don't repeat your mistakes. I do agree, though I don't think I had a bad debate. By the way, also thank you, Nine Tails Cosmic Fox, for coming in here. I've been following some of your content, so yeah.
I don't think you had a bad debate by any means, so I hope you don't go away with that impression.
No. I think, I'm sure that there will be legions of Destiny fans declaring that I won, or I'm sorry, declaring the Destiny won. But they were going to do that anyway because it's more about them feeling like their guy won. I think what was very telling was the fan of Destiny said when he ends a debate with someone he doesn't respect, he will usually like end it and be like, oh, well, that guy's a fucking idiot or something, or have some sort of pithy statement. When he ended the debate with me, he apparently didn't say anything at all, which leads me to believe I maybe gave him some things to think about.
Yeah, you had an honest conversation with him, which is, I think, something that's lacking in a lot of online debates that come for just blood sports. Even though the criticisms that I gave you of your methodology, I think that you did a very good job in that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't saying that. Just an introspective take on a post-debate analysis. Well, thank you, Nine Tails. Yeah, I think you're totally right, and that is really important for people to know with debates because, yeah, this is debate. Like anything else, is a skill, and you get better by doing it. We're all fallible. So yeah, thank you, and that's a very positive way to look at things. The UK took back Piers Morgan, so they deserved a little bit of credit. And they sanctioned a bunch of and China sanctioned a bunch of politicians and journalists. Gee, not surprised.
Shocker.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting. There's a lot of China stands that are suddenly showing up in groups that I'm in, and I have gone on record as defending China because of the whole China bad thing. I think is really unhelpful, and there's especially being that it is the largest and most populous country in the world. It is the major rising economic power, and there's a lot of people who have been saber rattling at China. And I don't think even though I don't think a war is likely, I don't think it's a good idea to just saber rattle at China.
We're never going to war with China. That's not happening. If you want to hear more, like we have nukes, they have nukes. If we go to war, everything is over. So it's not happening.
Well, that's happy with me. They'll also say people are freaking idiots. And also, it's not just war, but, you got to think people, you fan the flames of xenophobia too much and, people get attacked. Like individuals get attacked. I never forget about that Muslim cab driver who got his throat slit by a returning veteran because he identified himself as a Muslim. People get sucked in with this insane tribalism, and it's not good for anybody. That said, the opposite is also not. China not bad. China not good. China complicated. Empire and empires are always awful.
If you want to read a couple interesting books about this subject as we're on it, a couple little recommendations I have for anyone who's listening. There's a really cool book called The Man on Mao's Right, who's written by the English translator for Chairman Mao back in like the 60s. And as much as people on the left hate the guy, Henry Kissinger's book on China is actually a really interesting read.
I'll have to check it out and see if I can stomach my bile monster.
Yeah, the trick is not to read it in his voice because you're going to be reading it like, and now we're going to talk about China. And I'll give you a funny story. He actually hit on my girlfriend one time. Henry Kissinger. I was in Le Cirque in New York, and there's Henry Kissinger, and I'm like, holy crap, there's Henry Kissinger. I gotta go say hi. So I got up and I violated the New York rule of not saying hi to celebrities. And he's like, this is your girlfriend? You're a very lucky man. And I'm like, am I gonna have to fight Henry Kissinger right now? Like,
please fight Henry Kissinger. But so apparently Britain's speaking out against the treatment and imprisoning of Muslims. Beijing denied that it's happening, and basically UK is lying. Yeah. So by the way, I saw this in a Google alert related to my name. There's some stupid assholes on Destiny's like Reddit who think I'm a Uyghur genocide denier because I talked to Caleb about his debate with Vosh. I'm going to say this explicitly right now. The Uyghur genocide absolutely is happening. It is a cultural genocide from what I can tell. And unless we get more information, I don't think it's right to equate it to like the Third Reich. It's actually closer from what I've noticed to what the Americans and the Canadians did to the First Nations people. If you look up in the history of native boarding schools, which is horrifying and terrible and a human rights violation on its own. But unequivocally, I am not denying any freaking Uyghur genocide. I can't believe I even had to say that to you assholes.
I would say it's more in line with like the Sovietization of the USSR. They tried to make the new socialist man, but it's combined with a worrying trend in China right now that's very Han Chinese centric. Yeah.
Well, also, like the thing is that it's an empire, and an empire is always going to treat a minority population terribly. Like the United, if I were in China, and I'm sure there's probably some freaking like Americanophobes in China or Amerofile in China who are like, oh, it's all lies. The black people are definitely not treated poorly in the United States. No, they are. Black people are treated poorly in the United States. Muslims are treated poorly in the United States. And we have similar things going on in China and every other major empire, because this is just what the state does when it comes to minority populations. Now, is it significantly worse? I think so at this point, just because of the sheer scale. It may come out that things are way worse than I imagine here. But yes, no, so genocide is happening. There, you freaking vultures.
Why'd you deny the genocide just now, Brad?
Oh God. So here we go. Because here we go. Because if there's anything Boris Johnson cares about, civil rights for Muslims. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Didn't he claim to be like Turkish or something?
I have no idea. I'm sure something, but yeah, Boris Johnson, he's not as bad as Trump, but I really hope they get rid of him as soon as possible. Regrestiny fans can't handle losing. I've never heard Regrestiny, but I love that.
That was a good one. That was savage. That was great.
Yeah. Except xenophobia in America is probably more consequential than counter in China. Good point. Yeah,
I imagine. I know a lot of people who have been to China and they didn't experience any like negative stereotyping by the Chinese locals, except for one of my friends who's more overweight than I am right now, who got made fun of for being fat. But that's more of a cultural thing. That's
it. China is fat phobic. China, you are problematic. You are on notice being fat phobic. As I am officially fat due to COVID cookies and getting pushed up and getting my shot early.
Oh, one of my suits got tighter yesterday. I got freaked out. I'm running like 5 miles tomorrow.
Oh, geez. Yeah. I would say, when you get a chance, get the vaccine as soon as you can.
I'm like haunting the VA right now.
Oh, that's excellent. So here we go. The fact that they're okay, so we've got this whole thing.
We could do a whole nother show on like the Uyghur thing.
I really don't want to.
Or we could not.
It might be important just to correct the record if anybody's like Googling my name. Yeah. So like maybe we'll just put out like a video. It's like Uyghur genocide is happening. All caps. And then but you know what the thing is that these people who make these assumptions, they don't watch the videos. They don't even really care. All they want to do is feel superior to someone. Yeah. Feel in the know. So I guess we've been at this for an hour and a half. I meant this to be 45 minutes. So Bobby, do you want to plug your pluggables? Where can people find you? What are you doing next? And how soon are we doing another Homage to Catalonia chapter? Because I think we've coming up next.
Whenever you want to do Homage to Catalonia, let me know. I'm up for it next week. I'm pretty much free next week. I'm Mustache Bob 2 on Twitter. I'm Mustache Mafia on SoundCloud. Mustache Mafia on YouTube. I have been neglecting making content, and I am so sorry for anyone who's actually subscribed to me at this point. Coming up, I'm going to do a series. I think it's going to be 4 or 5 parts of why Trump wasn't an anti-war president and how the failed right wing in America has damaged us internationally and damaged world order. After that, I'm going to do a series on the Frankfurt School conspiracy that I've been trying to work on for a while. And
because you're one of the few people who actually knows. And
yeah, I've actually read the book. Books.
You've been commie mind controlled.
Yeah, I've got a microchip in my head.
Which is really funny, because the times that I have had you talking to like actual commies, they usually get pissed at you.
They do. They really do. And it's hilarious to me. And I'd also like to do a Cyberpunk 2077 review, possibly with you at some point in the future. And that's what is up with the Mustache Mafia right now.
That sounds great. Okay, so check out Bobby of Mustache Mafia. Please like, comment, and subscribe down to here. If you can, jump on the Modern Day Debate and put in a comment in favor of me. The Modern Day Debate audience is not keen on me, though. I really feel like it seemed like this debate was really well received, so I'm happy about that. And, hopefully me and Destiny will get to argue on the state sometime.
Yeah, he's not a bad guy. He's not as bad as I thought he was going to be. So, props to him for that.
He's really not. And, especially, it's one of the things that I've learned is like people online just love to hate people.
They do.
And, I've seen like very twisted caricatures of people that I know get pulled out and speculated on, and it's the weirdest freaking thing. So, and I think Destiny's definitely been the focus of a lot of that.
The Panopticon goes both ways. It's wanting to be judged and also judging.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely terrific. So overall, by the way, where it comes to, I don't know, we all need to be very mindful, by the way, when it comes to accusations of genocide and abuse of minority populations by states, because most of the time, they are doing it. And also because states have the power to do really horrible things really fast. We should always err towards believing that these things are happening. That said, we also don't want to allow our righteous outrage about that to, one, turn us against Chinese people or contribute to an environment in which Chinese people are victimized. It's one of the reasons why I'm very careful about my criticisms of Islam. Even when I have problems with it, I know that what I say may be used by people like the New Atheists or, by bigots to try to justify other worse things. So it's a very complicated and difficult situation. But overall, if it is not hard to believe that a giant empire is mistreating a population within its rule, because they all do that. This is not to say that we are going to equivocate everything. It's not always the right way. And I guess simply because of the size of it, that it's probably worse than what the United States is doing to some certain populations. But, again, that is, we as people need to work much harder to hold our own leaders to these standards and to prevent these kinds of things from happening. Because it's not like, as he points out, there's never going to be a war with China. So what's going to happen? Are we going to invade and take them down, or are they going to be shamed by Western disapproval? No, I don't think so. I think what needs to happen to end situations like this is people within their own countries need to realize their power and stop their own governments. I think that's the best way to handle this. So, so let's see here. Too quick. The Modern Day Debate audience loves the spectacle, so I could see why your approach wouldn't gel with them. Yeah. Also, by the way, a large portion of the Modern Day Debate audience are like freaking flat earthers, creationists, and new atheists.
Oh God, the plebs make such a noise when they're excited.
So all right, so and this last one I'm just going to end on here. That shouldn't need saying, though. I know that what you mean as, does anyone who remembers the first decade of the war on terror? I very much big agree. So I'm very happy. So audience, thank you guys very much. Do go check out and subscribe to Bobby B if you haven't already. The link is down there. And also, by the way, I got to put this link in the description, but it is in the description of the Modern Day Debate one. My friend's sister was fired essentially for having a heart condition. And she lost her health insurance, and then it was discovered that this was the heart condition, and she needs bypass surgery. She's younger than I So they're trying to raise the money to cover the surgery and other expenses. So if you can, please do check in. Even $1, even a share will go a long way to help this out. And I'm going to drop the link into the video chat right here, and I'll also remember and add it to the thing. But yeah.
Oh, it split up. I think.
Oh, it split it into two. God damn. You know what? Hang on. I got tiny URL.
Well, it might be on. I'm in the studio, so it might have done it on my end, but not on the YouTube end.
Oh, we'll see. I'm gonna do a tiny URL as well for it, just in case. So, come on. What do you got? Tiny URL from the old. I don't even know if anybody even uses these anymore, but I guess they do. This is my boomerness. You
just want to grill.
Dude, grilling is amazing.
Bro, I actually made the Binging with Babish ribs from House of Cards today. They were delicious. I did just want to grill.
I've really got to fire up the grill now that the weather is getting warmer. Yeah. And all right. So from me, Brenton Lengel, to all of you, thank you so much. Bobby, thank you for taking the time to watch that incredibly long debate. And
yeah, I ran out of cigar, bro. I'm angry.
Oh, wait, hang on. We got K9. I became a socialist a few days ago. Hell yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Very happy to find out about that. My advice to you as a new baby socialist is, one, don't get too sucked into the revolution. Large social forces like that can weigh heavily on you, but also remember to be a person as well. And the other big thing is that I'll say is socialism and socialists can be very, very depressing. So do make sure you take some time for self-care, but also, welcome to what I think is probably the only major ideology at the moment that can save the world from global warming. So well done.
Buy you a cigar, buy you a beret, put the cigar in your mouth, put the beret on your head.
I'll tell you what, I really like socialist fashion. I'm just going to say that. There's something great about it. But yeah, so welcome, K9, welcome to the community. And it's interesting. One of these days I'll tell my story of becoming an anarchist and moving in a more socialist direction. Pro tip, I started out as a Republican.
Heretic.
Yeah. All right. So from me to all of you, just keep working, keep fighting for a better, saner, more compassionate world, and keep making the argument. This is Brent of Insurrection with Brenton Lengel, signing off.